You're listening to the Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. We have some huge news coming out of the RFK Jr. camp. This is a big deal. So I want to get into that. I have some video of the Nicole Shanahan, which is RFK Jr.'s running mate, revealing some pretty interesting strategies on a podcast just a couple days ago. And then also I want to get into this narrative that Kamala Harris is a closet alcoholic. This, ladies and gentlemen, is very interesting. And I have some video I want to show. And I'll be honest, as a former alcoholic myself, recovering alcoholic, and an entire family of addicts and alcoholics and functioning alcoholics, I got to throw some weight behind this theory. It certainly looks like it to me, and trust me, I have seen my fair share of functioning alcoholics. I lost my father to alcoholism. He struggled his entire life to addiction, drugs, alcohol. I myself am a former alcoholic. I wasn't a functioning alcoholic at all. I came very close to losing my job. I was drinking and partying heavy. So I think I know a thing or two about what somebody looks like whenever they are drinking, and this is the thing. Closet alcoholics, they're very different than your regular alcoholics. One thing about alcoholics is the perception of somebody that's an alcoholic is subjective. I mean, it changes depending on what you think an alcoholic is. I mean, one person can think a alcoholic is some bum living underneath a bridge, and another person's perception of an alcoholic could be somebody that has to have alcohol every day to function. It's very subjective. But Kamala Harris seems to me a closet alcoholic, maybe. I'm just going to share with you the rumor that's going around and show you a video, and then you can make up your own mind. All right, I'll give you my 2 cents about it, and then we can just move on from there. Pay attention to the hand movement, pay attention to the body language, pay attention to her words, just pay attention, and then we're going to go through it after. Here, check this out.
I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for having an open mind. Listen, part of the beauty of our democracy is that we debate, we discuss. We often will disagree, but we have the same motivation. I know you're here because you love our country, and I'm here for the same reason, and we may have other different ideas about how we go about expressing that love and strengthening our country, but I know we're on the same page in terms of where we're coming from. And I know that about you because you're here right now, and you had the courage to stand up and say what you said. And that means a lot to me. So thank you. Thank you. And on that point, I will say to you that I truly believe that some of the biggest challenges that face our country are not just bipartisan, they're nonpartisan. Truly. Is look, even if November of 2016 had turned out differently, we would still be, right now, a nation in flux and a world in flux. Just think about it. Around the world, we have ascending and descending economies right now. Right? Population shifts in large part because of climate change, right? We're in the midst of an industrial and digital revolution. There is so much happening, globalization. There is so much change happening in our country and in the world right now. And it then presents a question. It presents a question, which is a very significant one, which is what as a nation will be our standing? What will be our definition? What will be our strength? What will be our significance?
I don't know, folks. What do you think? Now, you don't have to necessarily be slurring your words to be drunk. Me personally, I was a very good speaker when I was drunk. I didn't slur my words. In fact, if it wasn't for the smell of booze on my breath, a lot of people probably wouldn't even know I was drinking, depending on what stage. There's one, you can take a little bit of alcohol to take the edge off, or you can drink enough to be absolutely hammered. There's stages of drunk. And listen, man, I gotta tell you, there was just certain things that she did, her body language, the way that she was talking, her hand movement. I don't know, like that kind of day drunk kind of look to it. I don't know. There is no confirmation out there. You read some articles and they say that this was a rumor started by the Trump campaign. But I actually was thinking about this, and I wasn't the only one to notice this. There was a guy that was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I don't know if he was doing a comic bit or what, but he mentioned how Kamala Harris reminds him of a drunk soccer mom. And he starts explaining it, and you're like, like there's stages of drunk soccer mom. And then you get to that third stage where the drunk soccer mom is just like, okay, I'm going to go up into my room and it's 8:00. I'm going up into my room, so I'll see you tomorrow kind of thing. It's true. So anyways, the thing is it is just a rumor. We don't have confirmation, but like I said, as a former alcoholic myself, as somebody that is a recovering alcoholic, somebody that would drink heavily, I've been surrounded by alcoholics almost my entire life. The functioning alcoholics and the non-functioning alcoholics. And like I said, what determines an alcoholic is subjective, depending on the perception someone might have on what an alcoholic is. But we can't confirm it. I have no idea, but I will put some weight behind this theory. We'll find out. I'm sure this rumor's not going away anytime soon. That was just the only video piece that I could find that really kind of solidified my perception, my opinion on it. I think she is. I think before these speeches, she's not slamming back, vodka and tonics, 4 or 5 of them before she goes out on the stump. Maybe a shot, maybe a martini, 1, maybe 2. But there is some weight behind this. There are some former staffers, I do believe, that have come out and said that Kamala Harris does drink. Whatever, however you want to take that, I don't know. We don't have confirmation that Kamala Harris is a closet alcoholic. Not yet, anyways. I'm sure this is going to be something that doesn't go away until we get to the bottom of it. I don't know, man. I don't know. It certainly looks like it to me. So anyways, enough of that. I want to get into what I really wanted to talk about, and this was big news when I seen it last night. So Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s running mate, was doing a podcast, and she said this. Here, check this out.
So, there's 2 options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walt's presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Personally, I thought Nicole Shanahan was a leftist. And now you go back and you do the research into her. She does come off as kind of like her environmental policies, her social policies. But I think clearly these two, RFK Jr. and Nicole Shanahan, think that Donald Trump is going to be better for the future of this country. He's going to get this country back on track. And I have to agree with them. Between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the differences could not be any more stark. when you vote for Kamala Harris, you are going to get not just what we have now. So things are not going to stay the same. They're going to get progressively worse because they're not even hiding their radical ideas anymore. I mean, when you come out and you say government price controls and $25,000 for new home buyers, I mean, these are radical, radical ideas, not to mention have already been tried in the past and have failed. And we went through that on the last show. So Nicole Shanahan always kind of came off to me as not as leftist as that, but kind of when it comes to her environmental policies. Same with RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has never fooled me. You know, when you look at RFK Jr., the guy is a staunch Democrat, right? An old school RFK Kennedy Democrat, like I used to be, like my parents used to be, like a lot of you out there that have, you know, were Democrats and voted Democrat your whole life. Your whole family were Democrats until Donald Trump came along and the Democrats just lost their, you know what? They have went off a cliff. And a lot of us were politically homeless. We didn't leave the Democrat Party. The party left us. There is millions of us out there. I voted for Obama. Obama was not very good. I mean, he spoke a good game. He was an excellent talker, very convincing. I voted for him in '08, and I didn't vote at all in 2012 because I thought both candidates sucked. And believe it or not, after the 2016 election polls, exit polls started coming out, where there were millions upon millions of us Obama voters that actually voted for Donald Trump. And I think this is what caused the Democrat Party to kind of reach out and try and soak up all these radical leftist people to make up for the moderate Democrats that they lost. And that is why this ticket right here is the most radical, socialist, communistic, Marxist party we have ever seen. And I don't say that just to say it. I am telling you, these people support Marxism. The very definition of Marxism when you're talking about government price controls and all the radical ideas that they're coming out with. The separation of parents and children, the divide. Anyways, and you know what, just to go back to Kamala Harris's video, the video where she kind of looked like she was a little tipsy. One of the things that she said in there, and I didn't respond when I should have, was what type of country do we want to be, right? And I started thinking about it, and America is already a drastically different country in the eyes of the world right now. America has become the #1 exporter of bad ideas. And this is something I said months and months, maybe a year ago on the podcast. We are exporting bad ideas. The ideas that are getting spread like a cancer throughout the globe all come from the United States. This transgender ideology, this social contagion that they're calling the trans movement, the LGBTQIA+, just go down the alphabet, all that comes from us. And so when Kamala says, what type of country do we want to be? Well, we're already being defined right now as a radical leftist country because we're exporting all these awful ideas. When's the last time we exported like some mass technological advancement, like the iPhone or fracking or something just major that the world uses and looks up to America for? The Industrial Revolution, automobiles, like all these things, these ideas that came from America, that we haven't had one, and I couldn't tell you how long. No, now the ideas we export are boys can be girls and girls can be boys, putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, transgender ideology, separating the kids from the parents, allowing kids to mutilate themselves at the age of 13, 14, mass abortion by the millions, record high. All these awful ideas, these so-called woke ideas, that's what we're exporting. So when Kamala Harris, when she says, how is our country going to be defined? That's how it's going to be defined. If we don't do a 180-degree turn with this country, we have to go the opposite direction. And, you know, the progressives will call it going backwards. You know, that's this whole, we're not going back. But when you really think about it, these progressives have become so progressive that they've actually become regressive. They're going back. We're bringing back segregation in schools. They're bringing back all these the 1619 Project, judging everybody based off the color of their skin, not the content of their character. We used to have a colorblind society. That used to be the goal, right? Martin Luther King's famous speech: to grow up in a country where people are not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Well, progressives have become so progressive, they've actually regressed into we should be judging people off the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. So to answer Kamala Harris's question, that's how the U.S. is being defined right now. And if we don't want to be remembered as a country that completely destroyed a colorblind society, and we start exporting these bad ideas across the world like we have, then we must do a complete reversal and go the opposite direction. Bring back the Constitution. These people, when's the last time you heard Democrats talk about individual freedom? When's the last time you heard Democrats talk about the Constitution, or just even how great America is? I mean, I think Make America Great Again is like a poison pill to Democrats. They will not say it. And I think that that Donald Trump has psychologically and emotionally broken these people to where they're supporting they're having to go so opposite of Donald Trump that they've actually turned into anti-Americans. So think about that. When you have a party that wants to do the opposite of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump loves America, they have to hate America. When Donald Trump says he wants to produce more energy from, more fossil fuels than ever before because fossil fuels generate wealth in our country, what do they want to do? The opposite. So what happens when what happens when the ideas coming from Republicans and conservatives are good ideas? That means Democrats have to go the opposite route, bad ideas. This is why we can't agree on anything other than, is Congress bad? Does the media suck? Like those things both sides can agree on. Term limits we can agree on, but we can't even agree on election integrity anymore. So when Donald Trump says that he wants secure elections, Democrats want unsecure elections. You see what I'm saying? This is the kind of thing we're walking into. I don't know how we got on here, but I want to emphasize to Kamala Harris's point, that's the type of country that they want. And that is the type of legacy the United States is going to have if we don't do a reversal. So no, I don't want America being defined by putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. I don't want to be defined as bringing back segregation and judging people off the color of their skin, not the content of their character. I don't think that's a good idea, and I don't think that is America. It's almost the opposite of what America should be and what America stands for. Anyways, I digress. To get back into the main reason why I wanted to do the show, RFK Jr. endorsing Donald Trump would be a massive, massive victory for the Trump campaign. You could almost say it would be a shoo-in for Donald Trump because Nicole Shanahan is right. The RFK camp is pulling off more Trump voters. Now, about 6 months ago, I did a show where I said that RFK Jr. could be Donald Trump's secret weapon, and he can be. And I don't know if this was all part of the plan from the very beginning, which was to soak up as many Democrat votes and soak up as many moderates as possible. And then at the very end, endorsing Donald Trump and bringing those people onto the Trump camp. I don't know, because when you have... I like RFK Jr. I really do. If Donald Trump was not running in this election, I think a DeSantis... and then whatever, I think a DeSantis as the Republican and RFK Jr. as the Democrat would be a step back into some type of normal direction. Something, what I could totally see that being a 2028 election. Totally. And RFK Jr. would be a sane, rational Democrat. I actually messaged RFK Jr. that maybe a couple weeks ago, that he should drop out and he should help Donald Trump as much as possible, because RFK Jr. sees exactly what we see. He sees the direction this country's going in. He sees the mass government censorship from being supported by the Democrats. They do support government censorship. That was a poll that was done by Real Clear Politics. The majority of Democrats support government censorship, and he gets it. because he was censored when he was talking about the COVID vaccine. He understands how dangerous what the Biden administration has been doing by weaponizing the justice system. Like I said, so he is pulling in a lot of the kind of in the middle people from different factions. So people that just don't want to vote for Donald Trump, we're going to vote for RFK Jr. People that see this country going in the wrong direction and see what we see about the weaponization of the justice system, the shady elections that we're having with mass mail-in ballots and signature verification thresholds, when they see the tampons in boys' bathrooms supported by none other than Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate, they weren't going to vote for Kamala Harris. They were going to go with RFK Jr. So RFK Jr. had this very unique ability to bring on board the sane, rational Americans that just don't support Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. The key is will they end up voting for Donald Trump if RFK Jr. endorses him? And I have to say yes. Because when you're thinking about the future of your country, somebody that's a staunch never-Trumper, that won't vote for Donald Trump, when it comes to election time, when it comes to going to that voting poll, that voting booth, and pulling that lever for Donald Trump, they're really going to think about, do I want to continue down this path of destruction for America, this very anti-American party? Or do I want to reluctantly hold my nose, pull the lever for Donald Trump because RFK seems to see something in Trump that I don't, and they're going to pull that lever for Donald Trump? I'm telling you, this would be a massive victory for Donald Trump if this turns out to be true. And I mean, if it's coming from the running mate of RFK Jr., then it has to have some level of validity to it. So I actually have an article from the New York Times. They actually wrote about this yesterday, and it's titled, "Kennedy's running mate suggests they may drop out of the presidential race and endorse Donald Trump." Former President Donald Trump said in a television interview that under those circumstances, he would consider a role for RFK Jr. in his administration. I totally agree RFK Jr. should be in this administration. Give this man what you know he's good at, which is the environment and the FDA, vaccines. But I don't see him as some radical. I could totally see RFK Jr. in the FDA and the EPA kind of cleaning this stuff up. He is a Kennedy. He is a Democrat, but nowhere near the type of Democrats we're getting right now. So the article continues, RFK Jr.'s running mate said in a podcast interview that they were considering dropping their struggling independent presidential bid and endorsing Republican Donald J. Trump, blaming the Democratic Party for what she said was a sabotage of their campaign. Of course it was. What they did to the RFK Jr. campaign, to his candidacy, was disgusting. It was the epitome of anti-democracy. What they did to RFK Jr. by removing him off the ballot so that Joe Biden would not have any contenders. And then Joe Biden pretty much walks his way into the candidacy with 14 million votes, well, because there was really nobody else to vote for on the ticket. And then he drops out, and then they replace him with Kamala Harris. You see how anti-democratic the Democrat Party is? Yes, this is the type of stuff people are starting to see. They are the complete opposite of what a democratic system should look like. And, you know, a democratic republic, our democracy, the Democrat part of the republic, only goes as far as how we elect our representatives. We are not a full-blown democracy. In fact, full-blown democracies are pretty anti-American. They lead to tyranny, they lead to totalitarianism, so on and so forth. But we are a democratic republic, which means we have a republic, a constitution, and we vote, right? We vote for representatives to represent us and to represent the Constitution. That's it. Other than that, that's as far as our democracy goes. So what they did to RFK Jr. was disgusting. It was unlike anything we've ever seen. And this really opened up my eyes to what the Democratic Party was willing to do to beat Donald Trump. These people are not the defenders of democracy. They're actually the opposite. They are the destroyers of democracy. And in fact, I have a video that I want to show to you of RFK Jr. doing an interview. I think it was on CNN, maybe Caitlin Collins, I can't remember. telling you exactly. I think this was exactly when RFK Jr. realized that the Democrat Party is no longer the party that his family was a part of. Here, check this out.
President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest threat to democracy is not somebody who questions election returns, but a president of the United States who used the power of his office to force the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to open a portal and give access to that portal to the FBI, to the CIA, to the IRS, to CISA, to NIH, to censor his political critics. President Biden, for the first president in history, to use his power over the Secret Service to deny Secret Service protection to one of his political opponents for political reasons. He's weaponizing the federal agencies. Those are really critical threats to democracy.
Donald Trump, of course, tried to overturn a free and fair election. He tried to overturn one, right? He's still fighting in court.
Yes.
How is that not a threat to democracy?
Well, I think that is a threat to democracy. If him trying to overthrow the election clearly is a threat to democracy. But the question was, who is a worse threat to democracy? And what I would say is, I'm not going to answer that question, but I can argue that President Biden is, because the First Amendment, Aaron, is the most important. Adams and Hamilton and Madison said, we put the guarantee of freedom of expression in the First Amendment because all of our other constitutional rights depend on it. If you have a government that can silence its opponents, it has license for any atrocity.
So just to be clear, you're saying you could make an argument that President Biden is a worse threat to democracy than Donald Trump. That's what you just said.
But who else has ever tried to send, what president in history has ever tried to censor political opponents? What president has weaponized the federal agency? When my father...
There you go. That is the key right there. So everything he said in that video is true, and I think this is what normal, sane, rational Democrats are starting to feel. Anyway, so hours later after that video dropped, former President Donald Trump said he would consider giving Kennedy a position in his administration, and he said, quote, I like him a lot. I can't do the Trump impersonation. I suck at it. So I'm just going to go ahead and read you the quote. So Donald Trump said, I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. Mr. Trump said in an interview with CNN after a speech in Michigan, quote, I probably would if something like that would happen. In a nearly hour-long interview posted online on Tuesday, Mr. Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, a Silicon Valley investor who has poured more than $10 million into their campaign, appeared to concede that their effort was not likely to end in victory. The campaign is running out of money, its poll numbers are falling, and its efforts to secure ballot access across 50 states have hit repeated snags. This is not democracy. I can't stand the two-party system. And most, like all of you, I understand that it's not the system the framers intended for this country. Anybody was supposed to be able to run for campaign and run for president. There was never any of this two-party bullcrap, dude. And it has become so corrupt. It has become so intertwined with the politics and the insiders in Washington, D.C., the lobbyists and the special interests, that it's no longer a system that works for the American people. I mean, look what they're doing to Donald Trump. Who the hell would want to run for president and risk ending up looking like Donald Trump and going to prison for the rest of their life because Democrats are afraid you're going to win the election? No, that is absolutely not what democracy is supposed to be. And in fact, it's the exact opposite of what the framers had in mind. And so the fact that we can't have a third party, fourth party, fifth party, we should be able to vote for whoever the hell we want. And if enough people go into the reason why third parties don't win is because the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have a lock on the entire system as far as donations, incumbents getting federal funding for their campaigns, taxpayer funding campaigns. Yes, it's a real thing. all the rules and regulations from the FEC. It makes it impossible for the American people to actually elect a third party. And to me is disgusting, and I think it's anti-democratic. That's what I think. I can't stand the two-party system. I am not a Republican. I align with Republicans' views, but I am not a Republican. And the fact that I can align with some of RFK Jr.'s views and Donald Trump's views, but yet I have to be forced to vote for a Republican. I am forced to register as a Republican to vote. I think it's ridiculous. And not only that, but I think the two-party system really hinders the candidate's ability to actually support what they support and not just trying to pander everything. You know, Kamala Harris right now, this is why they're doing these speeches very scripted. It's all the same stuff. You can literally to a T. They are repeating the same sentences. They're taking the same script to every single rally they do. They're not answering questions by the people. They're not doing press interviews because they're just watching the polls. Whichever direction the polls go in, that's what Kamala Harris is. She is a freaking chameleon, man. She's a shapeshifter. She will be whatever she has to be to get elected. This is dangerous, man. Who the hell would want to vote for that? Nobody. But unfortunately, for people that don't want to see Trump get elected, they have to vote for her. And unfortunately, there's a lot of them. And unfortunately, they're very dangerous for our country. So it's like, it's almost the antithesis of cutting off your nose to spite your face. So in order for these people, because they hate Donald Trump so much, that they have to vote for their own destruction. Literally. These people hate Donald Trump. They are so emotionally and psychologically broken by Donald Trump that they will vote for their own destruction just to prevent him from winning the election. The media has brainwashed these people into hating everything good. It's like, oh, well, you must hate Donald Trump so much that you'll pay $5 a gallon for gas. You must hate Donald Trump so much that you'll pay $7 for a dozen eggs. It's like these people, they're so broken that they don't even realize that they're voting for their own destruction. It's crazy, man. But this is how powerful the media is. So anyways, for Donald Trump to come out and say that he would put RFK Jr. into a cabinet position, I think that's excellent. And I think that's exactly how our republic was supposed to be. That's how it was designed. You're supposed to take the people with the best ideas and the best abilities. You let them in for 4 years, let them do what they can do best, and then leave. That is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to stay in there 40, 50 years like Joe Biden collecting a government check. It was never supposed to be that way. And so, really, to be honest, when RFK Jr. first announced he was running, I seen so much support for him from Republicans that I thought it would have been an awesome idea for Donald Trump to choose RFK Jr. as his running mate, as VP. I think it would have been the first unity ticket since Abraham Lincoln. I can't remember who he. It was confusing back then because we didn't have the two-party system we have now. I think Abraham Lincoln ran as a third party, which I think was the Republican Party. You had the Whigs back then. It gets confusing. And maybe we'll do it on another show. But I thought that would have been a perfect freaking ticket, man. You really would have brought both of these factions, the conservative Trump MAGA supporters and the sane, rational Democrats together with a RFK Jr. and a Trump ticket. He didn't do that. But I think by announcing that the Trump camp is going to give RFK Jr. a cabinet seat in the Trump White House, in the Trump administration, I think that's a phenomenal idea. And I think it would absolutely steamroll the Kamala Harris campaign. I mean, my wife actually said this earlier. I mean, RFK Jr. has to be careful now. I mean, because it's clear and obvious that there's people out to stop Donald Trump and his administration by all means necessary. Who that is, we don't know. But I'll tell you what, the more you look into the Trump attempted assassination, the sketchier it gets, man. The sketchier it gets. And that actually brought me into a topic I wanted to talk about on the next show. there was a deep fake that was released of Thomas Crooks, who was the shooter at the, I don't even like saying his name, but it's kind of relevant. Kind of. We won't, anyways, let's just move on. So there was a deep fake video that was released of the shooter, of the attempted assassin of Donald Trump. And the video showed him walking out of a building with Larry Fink, which is the CEO of BlackRock, one of the globalists. I mean, the guy is really like America's villain because he wants to completely destroy our country and turn it into like this globalist utopia. We won't get into it. We've done it before, went through BlackRock and Vanguard and all that. Anyways, there was this deepfake video released of the shooter, the Trump would-be assassin, walking next to Larry Fink, and it looked so freaking real, man. And I had to look this up. I spent about 15 minutes trying to figure out if this was real footage or not. That's how real this looked. And I started thinking, I'm like, my God, man, if people are so eager to be told what to think now, and that is by just, media talking heads and celebrities behind a microphone, imagine what it's going to be like when we have deep fake videos out there that look so real. The problem with our society now is people, they read headlines. They don't read into, there's no critical thinking in the massive portion of our population. So it's, I want to know this about Donald Trump. So what do? The first thing they do, they go to Google in their phone and they click on whatever Google wants them to see first. And so that's how this works. That's how algorithm manipulation works. This is how these people are literally manipulated into how to think. And that's just with them going out of their way to try and do research themselves. Imagine deepfake videos. Imagine, this endless scrolling on TikTok and this endless scrolling on Facebook Reels. And they see a deepfake video of the would-be shooter of Donald Trump and Larry Fink. And there's nothing there to tell them that it's a deepfake. They'll think it's real. We're going to get to a point to where you're not going to know what to believe anymore. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the dawn of a very, very dangerous, at the least, and catastrophic, at worst, era that we're going into with AI, artificial intelligence, deep fakes. I mean, we're going to get to a point to where nobody's going to know what's true or not. This is going to get bizarre, and it's essentially going to force people to be critical thinkers. And so the hard times are going to be creating strong men. And it's going to force people to start thinking more critically, to start doing their research. And it's going to start, the AI, this is exactly the type of dangers that people were talking about with AI. And its ability to manipulate the public perception of anything it wanted, really. I mean, so when somebody sees Larry Fink walking out of a bank or a building with the would-be shooter of Donald Trump, people, and they can't tell if it's real or not, if they don't go do their research and look this up like I did, and it took like 10 minutes, because you have to find these, you got to dig for conspiracies, man, to get to the bottom of them. That's what makes an effective conspiracy a conspiracy, is how long it takes to debunk. Some you can, some you can't. And it took me like 10 minutes to debunk this video. And when I first seen it, I said, there's no way. There's no freaking way they have this, that there's this connection between the shooter of Donald Trump and Larry Fink from BlackRock. Because that would obviously mean that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, hired the would-be shooter of Donald Trump to assassinate Donald Trump. And that would be very, very bizarre. That would almost be like the globalist elites, the World Economic Forum, trying to assassinate Donald Trump because they see him as a threat to their interests. And then that just spirals out of control from there. So I don't even know how we got on this topic. I was actually going to talk this on the next show. But anyways, I want people to really, really think about, I don't know in what steps Donald Trump and the Trump administration need to take in order to start getting this on track. But my My assumption is that they must start with the two-tier justice system. It's the only way. It's the only way. They're going to have to give trust and credibility back to our justice system in this country. If you don't have equal justice, you don't have a country. If there is no equal justice in this country, in America, there is no America. That is, I think, the number one priority that needs to happen from the Trump administration. I actually bought a book. I'm gonna start reading it today from, I think his name is Jason Pollock, and he was reading the first 100 days of Trump's administration, and he suggested the same thing. We must get to the bottom of what happened in 2020. We must get to the bottom of what happened in January 6th. The 2020 election, by the way. So we must get to the bottom of the 2020 election, and we must get to the bottom of January 6th. We cannot move on as a country until we get to the bottom of these things. The American people must have trust and credibility in their justice system, in their elections, in their leaders. If they don't, then all of this fails. In their southern border. We're not even a sovereign nation right now. That is exactly what defines a country. So to go all the way back to Kamala Harris's speech, where she's, her drunkard speech, in my opinion, that's my opinion. To go all the way back, Kamala Harris doesn't even realize the very definition of a country is to have sovereign borders. And this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has broken that. We have no sovereign borders. We have no control who's coming into our country. That, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be one of the main priorities. Secure our borders. We cannot have a welfare system and open borders. We all know this. This is like one of the greatest things that Milton Friedman ever said. He was huge on this. You can either have a free migration or you can have a welfare state, but you can't have both. It's impossible. It's a mathematical impossibility. You can't have more people draining the system than putting in the system. So eventually, it's like, think of it as like a pool. You have a pool of water and you have a tiny hole in the bottom of it. If you're not putting the same amount of water into the pool that's coming out of the pool, then what's going to happen over time is the pool's eventually going to drain. What we need to do is plug the hole in the pool and then start bailing the water slowly. It's like a boat, or you can think of it like a boat, a hole in a boat. If you don't plug the hole in the boat is going to sink eventually. Okay, the only way it's not going to sink is if you're bailing the same amount of water out of the boat that's coming into the boat. And then what do? You're just staying afloat. You can't actually move the boat because you're too busy bailing the water out of the boat. So that we must plug the hole in the boat, which means we must secure our southern border. We have to get a hold of this immigration crisis that this administration caused. I don't care about some Republican bill that they did or didn't sign, that Donald Trump... No, that bill was garbage. It was not bipartisan. It was negotiated by 4 or 5 politicians behind closed doors. It was not a bipartisan bill. Second of all, you didn't even need the bill. It was because this administration is what reversed all of the Trump-era policies on the southern border, which caused the crisis in the first place. This is why they hate Donald Trump, because he just showed the entire country that the southern border can be fixed. And if he would have got a wall like we wanted, this problem would have been fixed permanently. That's why they don't like Donald Trump. Why is it so hard for these people to accept that we need a wall at the southern border, that walls would work? It's because they don't want to fix it, folks. We know this. They want this issue because so they can get votes on it. I mean, it's all starting to come to... I am a firm believer of this. People are starting to see and understand what most of us have been saying forever, for years. We're all starting to come in a line. It's all starting to come to light. And Donald Trump exposed all of it. This is why Donald Trump is going to go down as one of the most important people this country's ever seen. They are going to be talking about Donald Trump for centuries. That's right. And they wouldn't have if they just wouldn't have, if they just didn't try destroying him. He would have came in 8 years, he would have been gone. He would have went down as any other president, probably really, really good, governed the country well. But this whole turning Donald Trump into a freaking legend, this was done by the Democrats. They don't see it, man. So anyways, to go back to the main topic of the show, yes, I think RFK Jr. would be terrific in the cabinet of the Trump administration. And yes, I would like to see him in the FDA or the EPA. And yes, I would like to see him run as a sane, rational Democrat in 2028. I would like to see something like a Ron DeSantis versus RFK ticket. Because we don't lose. Who loses in that ticket? When you know both of them love this country and want to better this country, when both of them see the problems that this country is facing. Now we have a party, the Democrat Party, that they're the ones creating the problems. They are the problem, and it's spreading like a cancer. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. The video went way longer than what I thought, but I wanted to get into the next segment. I wanted to get into who the hell is running our country right now, and I want to tie it into what the framers thought about a leaderless country and why the framers wanted just one person to be head of the executive branch and why it's so important to have somebody in the executive branch running the country and for people to see that and know that and how it damages the perception of the White House, of the executive branch. We literally don't know who's running our country right now. Is it Kamala Harris? Is it Obama? Is it Biden? We don't know. This is a problem, and that's what I wanted to get into on the next segment. So make sure you tune into that. If you want to support the podcast, please follow the podcast anywhere podcasts are found. You can download this podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can follow it on Rumble. You can follow it on YouTube. If you want just the audio version, like I said, Apple Podcast works. Like, follow it, smash the like button, follow the podcast, follow the show, and share the show with your friends and family, because this is how the American people communicate amongst one another. This is how we share our ideas. This is how we talk amongst one another, so that we, the American people, can determine our own destiny in our country, not some radical globalist bureaucrats that are sitting in Washington, D.C., that have no idea what the outside of Washington, D.C. looks like. So, yes, it is important that we communicate. Yes, it is important that you share the episode with your friends and family. Informed people make the best decisions, and uninformed people make bad decisions. And I think we're getting a pretty good example of people making bad decisions because they're not informed right now as we speak. So share the show with your friends and family. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you. God bless America. And long live the Republic. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.